Hello friends, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Michelle Fondin and I'm the author of Help, I Think My Loved One is an Alcoholic, a survival guide for lovers, family, and friends. I'm also the author of Twin Flame Romance, The Journey to Unconditional Love. All of my books are available in paperback, Kindle, and Audible books. If you're new to my channel, welcome. Thank you for subscribing below. Click on that bell, scroll up to all for all notifications, and thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. I do readings, 30, 60, and 90-minute readings. Romance to inflame life, path, and purpose. You can book that at my website, michellefondinauthor.com. Welcome to Removing Obstacles Thursdays. Today, we are going to explore in video 3 of our Twin Flame and Addiction series, are you a codependent? Now, you do not have to be in a relationship with an alcoholic or drug addict in order to be a codependent. It is something that often happens even in relatively normal circumstances or normal relationships. So it doesn't even have to be a twin flame relationship. But this is something I believe is important that you take a look at. And this really helps heal your relationships, all relationships, but especially it helps to heal your relationship with your twin flame. Now, I know what you might be thinking. You might be thinking, codependent? No, that's not me. No, I'm not an enabler. I'm not a codependent. Absolutely not. I look out for myself. I set proper boundaries. I say what I mean. I say what I want. I say what I need. And if you think this is true, I'd just like you to listen until the end of the video where you can really determine whether or not you have issues with codependency. Very often, issues with codependency start in childhood. And typically this starts with a parent or both parents who are either mentally unstable, mentally ill, who happen to have narcissistic tendencies. I'm not going to say narcissists. Extreme narcissists are actually rare. And I know it's a buzzword that's going around today, but clinically, narcissism in its clinical sense is actually a pretty rare disorder. Parents that were drug or alcohol addicted, or parents who generally were just emotionally unavailable. And the reason why we adopted, as children, we adopted these tendencies to be codependent is because we felt that the love from our parents at any given moment could be taken away. And since we had this notion as a child that the love from our parents or one parent or both parents could be taken away, we developed these really unhealthy attachment patterns that caused us to create or co-create, because, our parents were a part of this, codependent tendencies. Now, your parent might be codependent as well. So it's pretty normal. And if you don't know about this, I would say look at the link above on the interview I did with Jessica Cozine when we discussed this. But if you had an addicted parent, then sometimes it's the addicted parent was also a codependent in their childhood and then grew up to be codependent or in codependent relationships. If your parent was mentally ill, but they had a mentally ill parent, then they learned codependent tendencies as well. So a codependent tendency says, if I don't do different things to heal this relationship or to help this person, then this person will abandon me or this person won't love me back. And so in a relationship, and this is most potent, it seems, in a romantic relationship, and it's even more potent in a twin flame relationship because it's a stronger relationship, that you feel like you need to be the savior of your person. And what does this mean? It means that you deflect the energy from yourself, which would be self-love and self-care, and you put it upon the other person who is your romantic partner. It could be a friendship, it could be a familial relationship as well. But let's just stick with romantic relationships for now. So what happens is you ignore your own needs, you ignore your own wants, you ignore your own desires in order to morph into the person you believe this romantic partner wants you to be. And so you give up your wants, you give up your needs in order to cater to them and their needs. And so because you have this fear of abandonment and you feel this void inside of you because oftentimes you've been abandoned as a child, and it may not be physically abandoned, but a lot of times it was like if the parent was addicted to drugs or alcohol, then they were not present or there was an inconsistency in their presence. If they were emotionally unavailable, they were not there for you emotionally. So, and if they were mentally ill, the same thing, like they were not there for you consistently. And so in order to fill this void, you enter into a relationship with someone who is really unhealthy, either mentally, physically, emotionally, has an addiction, so you enter into a relationship with someone who is really unhealthy in order to fulfill your role of being their savior, being their mentor, being their teacher, in order to almost make them subservient to you in a way. Because if you place yourself in a role that you are that person's everything, that they look to you for money, support, emotional support, spiritual guidance, food, shelter, water. If they look to you for all of those things, to have all of those needs met, then they're very much tied to you. And there's something inside of you that says, well, if they have this many ties to me, then there's no way that they would leave me because I am fulfilling way too many of their needs for them to ever leave. And that is what a codependent relationship is. But all the while, you are completely abandoning yourself. You're completely ignoring your needs, wants, and desires. And the only way you're getting any of your needs fulfilled, the only way you're getting any of your desires fulfilled is through that other person. And like, for example, if you make them dinner and they just say, oh, thanks for dinner, then it's that thank you that you are getting back in return. But very rarely with a codependent, unhealthy relationship, very rarely will you get that person returning the favor in like kind. Sometimes they will do it, but again, it's those inconsistent patterns of giving, those inconsistent patterns of being there for you, those inconsistent patterns of like showing their emotions or being emotionally available to you. And so there's almost this like panic mode that sets in with a codependent when they feel like their person is going to leave them, because when you enter into a codependent relationship, it's almost like you need them. You need them. And as I mentioned when I was speaking with Jessica in the interview, is that when I was in a relationship with an alcoholic, the alcoholic was addicted to the alcohol and drugs, and I, as a codependent, was addicted to him. So every time he would pull away from me, I would go into ultra panic mode because I needed him, because I was addicted to him. I needed the positive feedback. I needed the love. I needed the affection from him. And when I wasn't getting it, it was almost like my oxygen levels were cut off. Like my oxygen was cut off and I went into ultimate panic mode. And then I would do things like call him nonstop until he picked up the phone. I would text him and like chew him out and just like yell at him and tell him how worthless he was because he was drinking. And it was just really, really, really unhealthy. If you have a tendency to do these things, like for example, if you have a tendency to give money to your person under the guise of I am being a generous person, I'm being a good person, I'm being a good Christian, for example, is something I hear a lot. If you are giving money under the guise of being a good person, even though you know that this person has a pattern of consistently borrowing money and not paying it back, or consistently borrowing money, or they just don't seem to ever have money, even if they pay you back in like little bits here and there, it's like they never have money and they are always asking for money. But you feel like, I'm a good person, therefore I need to help them in some way. The same goes if you are consistently like giving them food or making them dinner or giving them a place to stay or letting them crash at your place. And again, it's just coming from this place of they're an adult person. They need to be able to take care of themselves and their basic needs. And it shouldn't always be one-sided. It shouldn't always be you providing the essential needs to them. And then what ends up happening is, as a codependent, there is so much resentment that is built up that eventually you blow up. And when you blow up, you usually stonewall them, or you ghost them, or you insult them nonstop, or you place demands and ultimatums on them. Because you can't ignore your needs for so long that those needs are just going to go unmet. At some point, if you're in a romantic partnership with someone, those needs need to get met. And so you're just going to explode in very unhealthy ways. You're going to put unhealthy demands on them and unhealthy demands on the relationship. Because of the one-sidedness of the relationship, it's like you have been ignoring your own needs for so long, or you've been ignoring your own needs. And then when you're asking that person to fulfill your needs, when you've been ignoring your own needs, it's almost like they look at you as to, why would I do that? Like, why would I fulfill your needs? Like, what for? So it's almost like they're a reflection back to how you treat yourself. And so I want you to just do a little check and just look into, am I going into this relationship now, whether it's a twin flame or a soulmate, am I going into this relationship now to fill a void? Am I going into this relationship now because I fear abandonment? Am I going into this relationship now because I fear being alone and I don't want to be lonely? I'm sick of being lonely. If any of those are a yes, I would say it's time to reassess and reevaluate your strategies and your attachment styles in relationships, because all of those reasons are the wrong reasons to be entering into a relationship. And so when you enter into a relationship not as a codependent, you enter into a relationship as a whole person. And you might not even understand right now what it means to be a whole person, because let's face it, society does not teach us about healthy relationships. Look at all the reality TV shows. Look at all the shows, like even The Bachelor, Married at First Sight, the ones that come up on Netflix, right? But look at all the reality shows about relationships, and they all more or less outline these codependent type relationships. And so we don't really even have examples of healthy relationships where it's two whole people coming together to have a healthy relationship. We most often see like jealousy and possessiveness and screaming and yelling and arguing and then kissing and making up. Like, we don't see like constructive conversations surrounding being a whole person and the other person being a whole person, and you not needing to fix the other person or wanting to fix the other person, but that you're just working on yourself. And when they come to see you, great. If they're working on themselves, awesome. If they're not working on themselves, cool. Like, it should never, ever, ever be in a relationship. It should never be, I need to fix you. Let me look to see what's wrong with you and let me try to fix you. Because that is very, very codependent. And so I would say, if you have really had some red flags during this video and you're like, oh God, I do that. Or if you notice that in the past you've gotten into romantic partnerships because you didn't want to be alone, you feared loneliness, or you feared abandonment, or you wanted to fill a void. You're like, God, there's this void inside of me, and I feel like when I'm in a relationship or when I'm with another person, like I don't feel that void anymore. If those are the reasons, then it's time to really, really explore how you can fill those voids. How can you not feel lonely? How can you not feel abandoned because you're not abandoning yourself on your own before coming into reunion with your twin, before coming into union with a romantic partner that makes sense for you and one who is whole. And finally, what I want to say to address that is that if your person, if your twin flame is indeed in active addiction, as an example, this is just one example, but if they are in active addiction, they are not ready for a romantic partnership. They're just not. Because every time you go back to them, it will still be codependent. Every single time. And believe me, I learned this the very, very hard way with the soulmate relationship I was in. I learned this, it took me so long to learn it. But I learned it the very hard way. And the problem is that the alcoholic or drug addict has also abandoned themselves. So because they've abandoned themselves, it's impossible for them to be in a healthy relationship until they get help. So I just want you to know that. And even if your twin flame is expressing codependent behaviors with you, then they too are not ready to be in a romantic relationship. So just recognize and know that, because I think a lot of times as twin flames, we're like, oh, I need reunion, I need reunion, I need it to happen. But when the person's not ready and when you're not ready, it's just going to be a toxic relationship. And that's the last thing you want. I'm sure you've had some toxic relationships in your life. The last thing you want is another toxic relationship. So work on yourself. Take a really good look at yourself in the mirror. Take a really good look at yourself and go, do I have tendencies that tend to be codependent? And if so, what are they? And how can I heal them? So I think that's a really good self-exploration for this week. Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for subscribing to my channel below. Click on that bell, scroll up to all for all notifications. And thank you for giving the video a thumbs up. Thank you for sharing this video with other twin flames. And thank you so much for your support of this channel. You can buy a book or 2 or 3. You can also pledge your support on Patreon, www.patreon.com/Michelle S. Fondin. And I will see you in the next video.